He is Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. What is it that we do?
We get the people what they want.
Jalen Rose, the Boston Celtics have quietly been the hottest team in the NBA, but Jason Tatum, there was nothing quiet about his 54-point performance that got them the win over KD, Kyrie, and the Nets. Jalen, is it time to start really taking the Celtics seriously in the Eastern Conference?
Taking the Celtics serious almost is like taking my fit serious. You got to. It's mandatory. Absolutely, my brother. Here's the thing. They had to iron out the dynamic of who's going to be the go-to guy with the Celtics. The elephant in the room with this roster as the season started, and I mentioned Ime Udoka was going to get this team to play defense, and Marcus Smart alluded to it basically earlier in the press conference when he talked about sharing the ball. So that's the 2 points of contention that they've really improved at since the first of the year. They've been the best defensive team in the league. Yep. And Marcus Smart, practicing what he preaches, had 9 assists yesterday. Now, ironing out the dynamics, it was foolish for anybody to ever say out of their mouths that the Celtics should trade Jaylen Brown. Newsflash, you're not going to get a better player in return that's currently in the league, and you're not going to draft the player that's going to be better than Jaylen Brown. So that was just dumb all the way around. He also had over 20 yesterday. And so what I mean is when Tatum is going, it's his time to shine on the big stage, 54 points. And by the way, we get so caught up in like who's a contender in the East and who may win it all. But let's just go old school basketball for a second. It was a Sunday afternoon and Jason Tatum was playing against Kevin Durant. And one of those guys had over 50 and the other guy returned and had over 30. It was a great game actually for the most part.
It was a great game. The Nets had a lead in the end of the third quarter, but it was Tatum who took over in the fourth. And we always talk about Brown and Tatum when they deserve that kind of shine, but what really has this defense in particular going are the two Williamses, Time Lord and Grant, and Horford's giving them good minutes. And Marcus Smart is anybody who's got the ball, he is playing and he's going to cover. The defense on this Celtics team is what propelled them. And in a 7-game series when things slow down and you get to game plan for another team, the defense is what can get you a win in a 7-game series.
And effort, like you mentioned, that defense, that multiple efforts, help and recover, contest and recover, and then clearing the backboard also. Al Horford has had a couple of double-digit rebounding games, and as you mentioned, Robert Williams blocking shots, changing shots, catching lobs, and I appreciate his improvement. And as I was watching him, it reminded me of like Mitchell Robinson in a lot of ways for the Knicks. Like when you have two young players that are both bigs and you're nurturing them along, it seems like Robert Williams has now taken that leap. And Mitchell Robinson has been terrific. He's leading the league in field goal percentage, but like as a parallel, that's what you want to see from a young big. And that now has stabilized their starting lineup. And again, I've always talked about one of the weaknesses of the Celtics, in particular defensively, is that Tatum or Brown were usually guarding a player that was 25 or 30 pounds heavier than them, in particular the last 4 minutes of the game. Well, when Williams is playing well, both Williams are playing well, and you get quality minutes from Al Horford, now that allows Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to play more like wings, and that's freed them up to score and do other things out on the floor.
Jalen, I hang out a lot with you outside of this television show, and one of the things we always joke about is the fact that you attend events without tickets. Like, you'll just go to the Lakers game and just walk in because people just open doors for you. Well, we had a similar situation with another former NBA player at this game in the Garden. Let's just take a look at what happened with Glenn Big Baby Davis.
Oh, these are our seats? Yeah. All right.
Huh?
Big Baby Davis is, this is y'all seats? Okay. Jalen, you've been to 1 million basketball games. How does this happen?
Well, this happens when you enter the arena. Big Baby know that wasn't his seat. Look down at your team. He know how to read.
They take track of those ones right next to the court.
Won a championship with the squad. He knows the seating arrangement and how it works. I'm pretty sure he's filled tickets out in envelopes for families and friends. He know what it is. But the funniest thing about it is when he looked left and looked right, and then he did the nervous point. When somebody said his name, look, He's hoping, so look, save me. Yo, what up? You know what I'm saying? Watch your point,
At the very end.
Ain't nobody calling you, dog. Look.
I also like, if those were my seats, I would wait until the camera was off him. You know what I mean? It's just like, just let him have his 10 seconds on camera, and then I'll let him know that those are my seats after they get off. Shout out to Glenn Big Baby Davis, friend of the show, been on the show before. Jalen, we had a lot of action in the NBA beyond this one game. It was a finals rematch in Milwaukee. The Suns did not have Booker, but this one was closer than I expected. But it was not Giannis. Giannis didn't play that well, to be honest with you. It was Middleton that got them the win yesterday.
So that loud noise you hear in the Eastern Conference is the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks stabilizing themselves. Recently, we've seen their big three each have 25 in the game. First time all year. Giannis, when you look at any other numbers of all of the MVP candidates, Giannis is right there. Going into this game, he's had his highest player efficiency rating, not only of his career, but one of the highest of all time. He's in foul trouble. Something else we haven't seen. Two players on the same squad have at least 16 points in the fourth quarter of a basketball game. Drew Holiday got going. He was struggling the entire game offensively. At the end of the third quarter, Coach Bud, he was talking about Giannis, he was talking about Middleton, and he said, I wouldn't be surprised if Drew got going this quarter. That's exactly what he said. And he got going. Giannis kept fouling, bad reach-in foul, terrible decision, got him out of the game, it happens. And then here comes Chris Middleton, right? Calm within the storm. 44 big points, 17, I believe, in the fourth. And I like that dagger that he made on the right side. I know our guy friend of the show, Jay Crowder, wasn't happy about that, but you gotta let that one fly, just like he did, to put the nail in the coffin. And so you add Serge Ibaka. You hope to get Brook Lopez back. And now all of a sudden they have a lot of depth up front to go with Bobby Portis. They have height. They have versatility. And so while we're enamored, and rightfully so, by the pairing of James Harden and Joel Embiid and the intrigue of what the Nets might be, and obviously you got to pay respect to the Miami Heat because they've been flirting with the number one spot. But man, these Milwaukee Bucks seem to be hitting their stride at the right time.
I have absolutely no idea who's going to win the Eastern Conference. I'd be lying if I said into a microphone I did, because there are 4 or 5 teams that I could see in the NBA Finals, which is going to make the Eastern Conference playoffs so exciting. But Jalen, in the Western Conference, the Joker, the stretch mark 5, MVP candidate, and without Jamal Murray, without Michael Porter Jr., he just keeps single-handedly taking this team to wins, and he's been doing it all season long, and yesterday was no different with the 46-point win.
You nasty boy, you nasty. Dog, we need to stop taking the Joker for granted. Let me be the person that says that. Because he's not a high flyer and he's not catching lobs and he doesn't have an array of high-flying moves that are in the top 10 on SportsCenter, we overlooking 46, 12, and 11? Is that what we doing right now? Playing without Jamal Murray and hoping to get both of he and Michael Porter Jr. back? And that was a nice win over the Pelicans who've played some pretty good games recently. And so as the MVP race gets slotted, I want you to make sure when you look at Joel Embiid's numbers, they're going to be comparable to Giannis's and not as good as the Joker's.
No.
The difference right now in that odds to me is record. The Philadelphia 76ers seem to be ascending towards the number one spot, but you can't overlook the fact if Giannis' numbers are the same as Embiid's and his team has a better record, it's going to go down to the wire. But lastly, here's what I appreciate. The big man is back. I always tell you it's a tall man's game. It's a tall man's game. Giannis, 2-time regular season MVP. The Joker won it last year. Giannis won Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Embiid is in pole position possibly to win MVP this year as well.
This was just an absolute dominant performance from Jokic. We always talk about the Clippers. Well, what if they get Paul George and Kawhi back? We talk about the Nets. What if they get Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant and Kyrie's available? This isn't even a what if with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. This team with Jokic alone is enough to surprise you in the first or second round in a 7-game series. That's how well the Joker has been playing. And it is time to revisit the MVP conversation because right now I might have Jokic as my number one. Because of the assist. When you put the numbers next to each other, when you look at Embiid's production and Giannis's production, Jokic he's got like 4 more assists a game. He changes the game. And the roster he has around him is not like the rosters that are around Antetokounmpo and Embiid. Jokic is doing it more himself. Jalen, I'm not going to sit here and act like I watched the NFL Combine all weekend because I was watching NBA basketball all weekend, but there were a couple of 40s that showed up in my timeline on Twitter, starting with Kalen Barnes from Baylor, the second fastest 40-yard dash of all time. Jalen, look at this. Gone. Gone. That's a human being running.
I love this so much because, but just think about, the discipline of the moment to prepare yourself for a 40-yard